The news breaks fast. No soft landing. Justice James Omotosho has just been summoned by the Nigeria Bar Association. And from the moment the announcement drops, the entire legal world feels the shock. This is not a normal invitation. This is not a polite request. This is a summons that carries weight, pressure, and consequences. It is the kind of summons that can change a judge's career forever. Or he would be possibly suspended. Because this time, the matter is not small. It is not hidden. It is not quiet. It is tied directly to one of the most sensitive judgments of the year. The life imprisonment ruling he gave Nnamdi Kanu. A ruling that pushed Kanu out of Abuja and sent him straight to Sokoto prison, far from the center, far from the noise, and far from the legal teams that expected something different from the court. From the very hour that judgment was passed, legal tension began to rise. Some people accepted it. Some people questioned it. But most lawyers, deep inside, knew something was wrong. It took days for the first doubts to appear. Then weeks for the arguments to grow louder. Then finally, the Nigeria Bar Association stepped into the spotlight with one simple message. They want answers. They want clarity. They want a full explanation of how that judgment came to be. Within legal circles, the tension becomes almost physical. Lawyers start reading the ruling line by line. Senior advocates begin holding private meetings. Retired judges start murmuring their concerns. Everyone wants to know how a federal high court judge arrived at a sentence that many experts say does not fit the law he cited. For the first time in a long time, the spotlight shifts heavily onto the judge himself. Not the defendant. Not the government. Not the political environment around the case. The focus lands squarely on Justice Omotosho. The summons from the NBA is not soft. It does not come in friendly language. It does not give room for excuses. It asks him to come forward and defend the legal foundation of the ruling he delivered with full authority and full confidence in court. But now, that same ruling is under fire. And the Bar Association wants him to explain the section of the law he relied on. A section many lawyers say does not apply to the charges brought against Nnamdi Kanu. This is where the pressure truly begins. Because the Nigeria Bar Association is not just any body. It is the voice of the entire legal profession. When it speaks, judges listen. When it moves, the judiciary reacts. And when it summons a judge, the entire nation pays attention. Inside Abuja, you can almost feel the heat rising around the matter. Discussions take over offices. Phones keep buzzing with opinions. People who normally stay silent about judicial issues begin to talk boldly. Some say the judge made an honest legal mistake. Some say he rushed through the ruling. Some say the pressure surrounding the case pushed the judgment in a certain direction. Others say the judgment simply did not follow the law as written. But no matter the opinion, one fact stands strong. The ruling has created a crisis inside the system. And the Bar Association cannot ignore it. When a judge passes a ruling that removes a man from the center of national attention and sends him to Sokoto, one of the most distant and isolated detention points in the country, the legal community expects absolute accuracy, absolute clarity, and absolute confidence in the law used to justify that move. But now, that confidence is broken. The NBA wants to know why Section 416 was used. They want to know what informed the interpretation. They want to understand how a life sentence emerged from charges that many say do not carry that punishment. This is not just about one ruling. It is about the future of legal integrity. If judges start applying the wrong sections of the law in major cases, the entire justice system becomes shaky. And for the Bar Association, protecting the system is more important than protecting one judge. As the summons spreads across the country, people begin to ask deeper questions. Will the ruling be reviewed? Will the judge face disciplinary action? Will the case return to court? Will the prison transfer stand if the judgment is found to be flawed? Every question adds more pressure to the moment. And for Justice Omotosho, this becomes more than a professional challenge. It becomes a test of judgment, a test of skill, and a test of personal integrity. He now stands in a place no judge ever wants to be. A place where his ruling is on trial. A place where the Bar Association demands answers. a place where the nation is watching every step he takes. The summons marks the start of a storm that will decide how the judiciary moves forward, a storm that could reshape the entire Kanu case, and a storm that places Justice Omotosho at the center of a legal battle he did not expect. But the truth is simple. The moment he signed that life sentence, this path began. And now, the accounting has arrived. The heart of the crisis sits in one place. The legal error. A single mistake. A single section of the law. A single decision that has now thrown the entire Nigerian judiciary into a storm. And this time, the storm is not quiet. It is not controlled. It is not hidden behind the walls of the court. It is open. It is loud. And it is shaking the system at its core. Everything begins with Section 416 of the Criminal Code. That is the section Justice Omotosho used to sentence Nnamdi Kanu to life imprisonment. But according to many top lawyers, senior advocates, and legal scholars, that section was never meant for the charges Kanu faced. Not by interpretation. Not by logic. Not by the structure of Nigeria's criminal law. The moment this discovery spreads, the legal world becomes restless. People start asking, how did such a major mistake pass through the courtroom? How did a federal high court judge read the section and apply it in a way that does not match the offense? How did the ruling leave Abuja with so much confidence, while carrying a legal error that could break the case apart? These questions begin to move across the country like wildfire. Senior lawyers begin teaching younger lawyers the true interpretation of the section. Law faculties use the case as a discussion point. Judicial analysts publish notes explaining why the ruling does not match the statute. And at the center of all this noise is one man, Justice James Omotosho. But now, the noise no longer stays outside the judiciary. It enters the institution itself. It enters the conferences. It enters the meetings. It enters the offices where decisions about judges are quietly made. The Nigeria Bar Association sees a dangerous pattern. They see a ruling that could set the wrong example for future cases. They see a judgment that could weaken the trust of the public. They see a precedent that could damage the legal profession. And because of that, the NBA begins to consider something even heavier. Possible disciplinary action.
Possible sanction.
And possibly, suspension. They do not say it loudly at first. They say it in private. They say it during internal conversations. They say it while reviewing the documents, the ruling, the entire case file. But once the analysis becomes clear, the tone changes. They begin to speak with more firmness, more boldness, more certainty, because in their mind, this is not just a simple mistake. This is an error that could damage the reputation of the judiciary if left unchecked. The idea of suspension enters the discussion, not because they want to embarrass a judge, but because they want to protect the integrity of the entire system. If a judge is allowed to misinterpret the law in such an important case without consequence, what message does that send to other judges? What message does that send to the public? What message does that send to the world? These are the questions the Bar Association is now considering as they review the ruling piece by piece. Inside their legal chambers, documents are spread out. Court transcripts are read repeatedly. Every line of the ruling is examined closely. Every section of the law is checked against the charges. And each time they compare them, the same conclusion keeps returning. Section 416 does not apply here. And if it does not apply, then the judgment was built on the wrong foundation. And if the judgment was built on the wrong foundation, then the sentence was not legally valid. And if the sentence was not legally valid, then sending Nnamdi Kanu to Sokoto prison under that ruling becomes a problem that must be corrected. This is the kind of mistake that can reshape a case. This is the kind of mistake that can expose deeper weaknesses in the judiciary. This is the kind of mistake that can lead to public distrust. And because of all this, the NBA is preparing for something serious. Their disciplinary committee is activated. Their legal experts begin their independent analysis. Their internal reports start forming. Their language becomes firmer. Their tone becomes sharper. They know the nation is watching. They know the Kanu case is sensitive. They know every decision will be questioned. And yet, they also know they cannot ignore what happened. Suspension is not confirmed. But it is now a real possibility. A possibility that grows stronger each time they review the law. A possibility that could become reality if the judge fails to defend his ruling convincingly. For Justice Omotosho, this is a moment of truth. A moment where he must stand before the Bar Association and explain every detail of how the section was used. A moment where his career may face the strongest challenge it has ever seen. A moment where silence will not save him. And excuses will not protect him. The error has created a wave. The wave has become a storm. And the storm has now reached the door of the judge who delivered the ruling. As the chapter closes, one truth remains clear. This is no longer just a legal error. It is now a crisis, and it carries the weight of possible suspension. It is not peaceful. It is not the ending anyone expected when Justice Omotosho first delivered his ruling. Instead, it is the moment where every action, every word, and every decision returns to demand accountability. When Justice Omotosho sentenced Nnamdi Kanu to life imprisonment and approved his transfer to Sokoto prison, he believed he was closing a long chapter of a complicated case. But now, months later, the entire country realizes that the judgment did not close anything. It opened something far bigger. Something deeper. Something the judiciary cannot ignore. The life sentence that was supposed to settle the matter has now become the center of a national controversy. The ruling that looked firm on paper is now shaking in the face of legal review. And the judge who delivered it is no longer in control of the narrative. Because now, the Nigeria Bar Association has taken full control of the issue. Their actions are not sudden. They are deliberate, planned, structured, and carried out with a seriousness that shows this is not just another case file on their table. The more they investigate, the more the ruling appears as a risky breach of legal standards. The more they analyze, the more the error becomes clear. The more they review, the more they understand how dangerous it would be to allow such a mistake to pass without consequences. For the Bar Association, this case is not about punishing one judge. It is about protecting the foundation of justice. If a single ruling starts a chain reaction of broken legal standards, the entire system becomes weak. And an institution like the judiciary cannot survive with cracks in its wall. This is the fear driving the NBA. This is the reason for their firm tone. This is why they summoned the judge aggressively. This is why suspension is now on the table. This is why the disciplinary committee is preparing for a long fight. Because whether anyone likes it or not, the ruling has turned into a crisis. A crisis that touches every corner of the justice system. A crisis that has forced senior lawyers to speak openly. A crisis that has pushed the public to question the thinking behind the judgment. A crisis that now places a federal high court judge at the center of a professional storm. And the pressure is not only external. Inside the judiciary, the tension is rising. Judges are watching quietly. Some are worried about the image of the bench. Some fear the public backlash. Some want the matter handled fast, before it grows even bigger. Because the truth is this. If a judge is allowed to misinterpret a major section of the law without consequence, the entire public loses faith in the courts. And once faith is lost, everything becomes harder. Every judgment, every ruling, every court order, every decision. This is why the judiciary itself is now moving carefully. They know that the world is watching. They know that the Kanu case is sensitive. They know that the correction of any error must be handled with precision. Meanwhile, on the outside, the public discussion grows louder every day. Some people argue that the ruling was deliberate. Some believe the judge simply made a mistake. Some think the pressure of a case involving national security may have affected the interpretation. And others wonder if the ruling was rushed. But no matter the theory, the fact remains the same. A legal mistake has placed the entire judicial system under heavy scrutiny. And now, the judge who delivered the ruling must defend himself in front of the Bar Association's disciplinary panel. They want to know the reasoning behind every line of the judgment. They want to understand the legal foundation for the life sentence. They want to question the justification for sending Kanu to Sokoto. They want clarity, transparency, and honesty. If they find that the ruling was careless, or poorly researched, or influenced by anything outside the law, the consequences could be serious. Very serious. Suspension is no longer just talk. It is now a realistic outcome. A possible judgment. A disciplinary step that could protect the system while placing full responsibility on the shoulders of the judge who made the ruling. For Justice Omotosho, this is the hardest chapter of his career. This is the chapter where his authority is questioned. This is the chapter where his future is uncertain. This is the chapter where every step he took in the Kanu case returns to face evaluation. The ruling that once looked final is now hanging in doubt. The sentence that once sent Kanu to Sokoto may be reviewed. The section of the law that was used may be thrown out completely. The entire judgment could be overturned if the legal foundation collapses under scrutiny. And if that happens, it will mark one of the most dramatic reversals in recent Nigerian judicial history. The crisis has reached its peak. The Bar Association is firm. The judiciary is alert. The public is watching. And Justice Omotosho's career stands at a crossroads. No one knows how this will end yet. But one thing is clear. A single error has grown into a national storm. And this time, the system will not look away.